Thanks for joining us today to learn about plant parasitic nematodes. My name is Amy Dismukes and I work for the Nursery Research Center in McMinnville, Tennessee. Nematodes that feed on plant parts are called plant parasitic nematodes, or PPNs, and are ubiquitous in agricultural soils. About 10% of the 30,000 known species are considered to be plant parasitic. Nematodes are obligate parasites. That means that they have to feed on living host tissue in order to complete their life cycles. They are translucent, thread-like roundworms. Many of the females actually lose their shape as they mature and they become more of a pear, kidney, or lemon shaped, like the root knot nematode. Plant parasitic nematodes possess all major organ systems of higher animals except for the respiratory and circulatory systems. Their body is covered by a transparent cuticle in which fluid in the body wall provides pressure to maintain body shape and allow movement. They infect and feed using a stylet. The presence of this stylet actually differentiates plant parasitic nematodes from those free living in the soil. This stylet is a rigid, pointed, hollow, needle-like apparatus that plant parasitic nematodes use to penetrate plant cells and feed. They have several feeding strategies, 7 to be exact. Within the endoparasites, there are the semi, the migratory, and the sedentary endoparasites. And these guys all enter plant tissue to feed and live. And then we also have ectoparasites, which feed from the outside of plant tissue. We have stem and bulb. We also have seed gall, and then we have foliar feeding strategies. The life cycle of plant parasitic nematodes is pretty similar. This is actually an example of Meloidogyne incognita, which is the root knot nematode or the southern root knot. All plant parasitic nematodes go through an egg phase. There are 4 juvenile stages, which means 4 molts, and then the adult. Any of these stages can go into an overwintering dormancy at any point, which is quite interesting, meaning they basically can shut down and wait for the environment to become more conducive. This could be temperature related, humidity or water related, or even host related. Crop damage is the result of a complex of the environment, the initial nematode populations at planting, nematode pathogenicity, which means how much pathogenicity do they have in them? Are they stronger than the others? And then also the ability of the plant to tolerate the feeding. That's the biggest thing here. If you have healthy, happy plants, they are generally able to tolerate more nematode feeding. However, that does not mean the damage has not been done. You can see severe stunting in this area due to the soybean cyst nematode, and this is from the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. How do these guys actually cause crop damage? Well, their feeding causes wounding, first off, which is an open entrance for pathogens and other small insects or bacteria. It disrupts the vascular system, which means basically it stops it from working properly. The vascular system is how water, minerals, and nutrients are taken up. So this nematode also uses those water, nutrients, and minerals that are made by the plant during photosynthesis, which are required for proper growth. They also produce enzymes that cause stunting, reduced yields, and possible plant death. Some symptoms, what we normally see above ground are chlorotic foliage, chlorosis or yellowing, abnormal color, stunted growth, a failure to respond to fertilizers, small or sparse foliage, a tendency to wilt readily, which means you may see wilting in those plants and not in others of the same species and cultivar. They're much slower to recover from wilt as well when it is very hot out. You'll see more weeds because generally these plants are not healthy enough to compete with those weeds coming in because weeds are pigs. Very often you'll see a melt out in turf and pasture, and we know what that looks like where one area just kaputs. There's often dieback in woody plants and trees. We have a very large problem with boxwood nematodes on cherries, nematodes on dogwoods, so they can affect plants in the nursery production system. What we generally see below ground might be galls, stunted roots, clubby roots, necrotic lesions on roots, and dead roots or root rots. An accurate diagnosis is required before you try and control or give control recommendations. Basically, what you need to keep in mind and have readily available for whomever you're going to work with on this is notate and bring in soil analysis, root tissue assay. We need to remember a field history, and of course you have visible symptoms above ground. Below ground is very important as well, so an entire plant and often soil associated with that plant are good to have. As we were saying, sampling fields for nematodes is a really good way to keep on top of a nematode population should you experience one. We recommend August through October when the soil nematode populations are at their highest and easily detected. Just a few of the plant pathogenic nematodes of economic importance. We have two different types of cyst nematodes. Root knot nematode, which affects a number of woody ornamentals as well as tomatoes and other vegetable crops. We have seed gall nematodes, lesion nematodes, the lance nematodes. Reniform nematode is a major host on cotton. It's pretty much wiped out a lot of the cotton states until they began doing research through different areas and now work with basically seed that's already been protected and coated. We have spiral nematodes, we have ring nematodes, and then we have the dagger, needle, and stubby root nematodes. This photo on the right is showing a dagger nematode infecting a root, and you can actually see the small stylet in which it uses, and this is a root tip. And this is the nematode in its body. It's basically a hollow tube with no skeleton, and it functions through osmotic pressure. How do you control nematodes? Well, first off, as we just mentioned, you have to know which nematode you're working with before you attempt control. They are very different, and control measures may be often very different as well. So what I always recommend, number one, if you can, use disease-free transplants when you're starting. That is basically on you. You have to look at root systems and make sure that you're not putting something with a pathogen or a weak plant into the soil. Resistant varieties are your best option because we know that whatever we have going on, we're going to starve it in the soil by using a non-host. Cultural practices. You cannot control nematodes without controlling your cultural practices. Nematodes can travel on water, in soil, in debris, on your truck tires, on your tractor tires, and on your shoes. They also can travel on your hands or with dirt that's been moved from another location. So being very mindful and careful of that and making sure that you don't go into different fields with the same equipment or either making sure it's washed down thoroughly before you enter a new field, is vital when dealing with nematodes. There are also soil pasteurization, where we cover it up and we heat it up and hope that the heat gets hot enough to take care of the nematode populations. However, that also kills beneficials within the soil. And then we have soil fumigation, which must be done by a professional. It is not something that we do without practice, control, and knowledge. For those who might need help or think that you may have a potential pathogenic nematode in your soil or your plants, please know that you have resources available to you with your local county extension office. If you go to the link at the bottom of the page, it will actually take you to a state map of Tennessee that is divided into 3 regions. Those regions are the Middle, East, and Central regions. Each county you can click on and go to that county website. If that agent can't help you, they will get you to someone who can. And with that being said, thank you so much.